Okay, this video is about construct fixity. Construct fixity. It's why people, perhaps we can understand why people fixate on constructs by admitting why we do. First of all, it was very encouraging for me when I learned how to quantify, define what I was encountering, and let's just say that with which I was dealing. Constructs, for example, Calvinism, someone asked me about it before I even knew what it was. That is, before I realized the person asking did not know what it was. And I don't mean the elements or highly charged misrepresentations of it, but I did not know that they did not know that that was a construct that I represent as a pyramid, for example. Biases, they come cultural, religious, political. Of course, being from Arkansas all of my life, I was here when a politician named William Jefferson Clinton said he was a Baptist. And then later in life, as I became aware of politics in our nation, I saw a person named Arnold Schwarzenegger say he was a Republican. So between a man named Bill Clinton saying he was a Baptist and a politician named Arnold Schwarzenegger saying he was a Republican, I could see why I would have an unusual perspective in trying to reconcile things that seem so far apart that how could they ever possibly be juxtaposed. But biases and our experiences, political, cultural, religious, are all involved in why we fixate. We all start out with constructs. Here we have IQ, EQ, and CI, or intelligence, emotional intelligence, cultural intelligence. Observed from feedback to this website that very much there's a high level of volatility. People are very volatile over this, very unaccustomed in their business profession, for example, on the job. If they were to be so volatile, they would probably be demoted, and if they are as volatile as their reactions to reality seem to be, they probably could not function in any high functioning corporate position. Cultural intelligence, people are demonstrating very little knowledge of deliberate investigation of cultural realities and how those affect people. So here's where construct fixity presents itself. Fixity itself is not present until someone is taught. For example, let's say we're learning now that, or I've learned particularly, that when you present, for example, an element, it's just an element, and from Scripture, let's say from a divine construct, divinely inspired religious construct, I guess, for lack of a better word, Scripture, let's just say that. So this Scripture, and you show someone something they've omitted, and it's an omissive error. We haven't found anyone, literally, we've not found anyone that has committed it to abandon their construct, or worse, they haven't included this into their, let's say, review and revise your Calvinism by improving it. And when someone says something can't be improved upon, they're then saying that a fallible religious construct to them, they're in action. Well, first, in orthodoxy, they will say it's fallible. But in their orthopraxy, they will behave as though it's infallible. And this is where fixity presents itself. Why would any of us practice or behave or conduct in a manner that indicates that a fallible religious construct is equal to infallible Scripture. Well, that's a good word there. So why would we do that? Why do we do that? Well, this is where the confrontation is very difficult. It's very difficult on all of us. When I learned, for example, one that's very innocent, benign, I suppose is a better word. Benign. For example, when I learned of fallible elements in post-tribulation, post-trib, and then when I learned of them in mid-trib as developed by people, and then when I learned of them in pre-trib, it didn't really affect me because I was so radically removed when I came out among people who told me something so radical. They said they weren't Catholic nor Protestant, and that was difficult for me to wrap my brain around because I had a very underdeveloped hermeneutic and low knowledge of Bible knowledge, little Bible knowledge. I was not a subject matter expert. But when it comes to something like this, I did not find myself at all with any tendencies to fixate on any of this. These are like, well, if you can not be a Calvinist or Arminian and not be a Catholic or Protestant type Christian, this is nothing. But when people behave as though a fallible religious construct is infallible, that's where a lot of harshness, and it may not be, I doubt that people are aware of what's triggered them. I doubt if they're aware that they're not presenting an attitude of a learner, they're not growing in grace and knowledge. For example, people just the clash of their constructs, if you will. Let's just take these pyramids, and they like to, dash them against each other, and they toss them back and forth like they're really having a conversation. But you notice they're all kind of ugly when they're doing it. And it's, I don't mean to laugh, but my goodness, it's like saying I'm not a Catholic or a Protestant, but I would like to see an Inquisition return to the United States. I'd like to see witch hunts resume in Massachusetts. I'd like to establish religion again in Connecticut as a Congregationalist. I'd like to see people subject to the magistrate. I'd like to see people forfeit their freedom of speech, conscience, and thought. And if you say that, that's odd. But then when you watch people practice, this really gets ugly. But the fixity is usually also related to their knowledge. Some people have worked something out in their own mind. They have this all worked out and they'd rather not think again. I've heard people who are very lazy, which is not a virtue. It's not the fruit of the Spirit. And once they have their construct, they can go around and just judge people downwardly who don't agree with them. My construct, pre-trib, just bit the dust, but emotionally I had no investment in it. I had not worked it out. I had never met someone who's old enough to have been here when that was originally developed. That would be interesting to try to understand what they were thinking and what tools they were using to develop that fallible religious construct. We know that we can go to the canons of Dort or the Synod of Dort. That's what it was. Something like that, where people were developing what we now know as Calvinism. We can see what they were reacting against or defending. We can understand, but a lot of this stuff you can never go back far enough, or there's no records of it. But fixity is something that is why I don't care. Literally, I said I do not care if someone's pre, mid, or post-trib. When they come our way at Landmark Missionary Baptist Church, we expect them to have plenty of fallible religious constructs. We expect them to have forms of Catholic, Protestant, Calvin, now Molinism, Arminianism. We expect people to be pre, mid, post. We expect people to be KJV, Cambridge, Oxford, pure Cambridge edition. It's on and on and on. We do know, though, however, that the rationale for the fixity will be related to IQ, their emotional intelligence, their cultural intelligence, just the quality of the person themselves. Again, attitude will be number one here, number two, and then of course with a little horsepower, like myself, I'm a commoner when it comes to this, but with this can all be overcome because the spiritual quotient, the SQ, is the word I'm coining. This spiritual intelligence is a person who's highly developed, and that's why I admire people. And sometimes when no one's around, and I'm, let's say, at a bookstore or flea market, I've actually picked up Left Behind books and looked through them with no one looking. I've watched the Left Behind videos when no one was at home, of course. I've read books written by Calvinists because there's really not many out there that have been written in any level worthy of a person's time that wasn't written by Calvinists. I admire J.R. Graves. He's a particular redemptionist. I admire the writings of Benjamin Marcus Bogard, L.D. Foreman, people that literally built a seminary on their own, literally invested their own lives and forfeited many of their own privileges and freedoms. So this construct fixity is really nothing we don't all share. It's just that when you come out of all of it completely, that could take some time. That's a disciple-making process. And find people who are out, as I find people in our church to teach, who are out, who can stand back and look behind where they've been, and they can look forward to where they're going, and they can realize that they can say confidently that they're not Catholic or Protestant or Judaic or Islamic or occultic. They can say they are not fully what we would call married to theological constructs of Calvinism or Arminianism, or the philosophical construct of Molinism and Arminianism, that is, whatever those all are. We can step out and see ourselves having outgrown those things. And certainly this is just an understanding of construct fixity, so people can appreciate that we all have that and we all present it. But learners will eventually come out completely, because I'm still not sure why someone can say they've come out from large constructs ecclesiastically and theologically. Ecclesiastically, like as large as Catholic and Protestant and Judaic, or say they've never been part of it, as Baptists say, and then or say they've never been or do not now fully embrace Calvinism or Arminianism or Molinism theologically, but then fixate over something so small as some of the more low level, low IQ, low spiritual quotient, emotionally intelligent. But that's enough on this. It's plenty of understanding on construct fixity. So that's it.